Don't be jealous, puppy. Grab my bag. Mommy's doing business. That's the sentence that shattered the glass wall I'd been pressing my palms against for years. That's the moment the room tilted, not because I was dizzy or drunk, I was neither, but because the weight of being invisible finally became louder than the jazz band. I stood there, holding a tumbler of club soda, watching my wife of 16 years, Stephanie, 39, loud when she's smug, louder when she's scared, wrap herself around the firm's founder like a promotional model draped on a new sports car. Her hand slid down his shoulder as she leaned in to whisper something with her wine-slick breath, lips nearly grazing his ear. When I didn't laugh along with the crowd at her line, she turned her eyes on me, sharp as a dagger hidden in a garter belt. "You're embarrassing yourself," she hissed under her breath, still smiling for the room. "And me." Then louder, theatrical, for the surrounding execs and sycophants. "Sweetheart, the coat check is over there. Maybe go do something useful for once." That got another round of polite chuckles. I nodded, not fast, not angry, just slow, deliberate acknowledgement. Then I bent down, lifted her overpriced designer bag from under the chair like some obedient valet, and walked out the ballroom doors. Silent, unfazed, no scene, the music didn't even stutter. 16 years, and that's what I'd become in her eyes. A background fixture with a car key and a wallet. If you're still reading, and if you've ever felt that moment when someone you once loved looked through you like a dirty window, don't scroll past. Subscribing helps the team keep doing this. Over 97% don't hit follow, but it makes all the difference, and you'll want to know how this ends. Trust me. Outside, the night air hit like a splash of cold water after a slap. My steps were slow on the stone path, but inside my chest, everything was steel cables and switchblades. I wasn't storming out, I was peeling the last sticker off the board. She thought she embarrassed me. That was the whole game for her now. Turned me into wallpaper while she climbed, smiled, danced, seduced, and gathered applause like confetti. And I let her, for years, not because I was spineless, because I was patient. They all thought I was retired. Finance, once upon a time, she'd say at parties when I was introduced. He dabbled. The people who mattered didn't press. The people who didn't, well, their opinion was never expensive enough to consider. Back at the valet stand, I didn't hand over a ticket. I walked straight to the car. Because it wasn't parked by the valets. It was staged where I placed it hours before, by the fountain, under a camera blind spot I'd memorized 2 galas ago. I popped the trunk, pulled out a narrow black folio, and sat behind the wheel. No music, just the sound of my breathing. The documents inside were warm from the heater vents, crisp and final. No drama, no threats, just math and leverage. Stephanie always thought power wore a tuxedo and danced under chandeliers. She never understood. It's the man who walks out with a bag and doesn't look back who's actually holding the detonator. I dialed from memory. Activate the packet. Effective immediately. Schedule the reveal for tonight. Quietly. No response. Just a soft click. Confirmation. Stephanie had no idea what I was doing while she flirted. What I'd been doing for the past 3 years, ever since her gym session started running late. Her makeup bags grew suspiciously lighter, and her calendar filled with last-minute business dinners that never included spouses. She thought I was just eating leftovers and watching game shows. She never asked why my laptop was always encrypted or why I still took trips to DC every quarter. Old habits, I told her. She never cared enough to ask more. But tonight wasn't about the cheating. That was just smoke. The fire was what she lit the moment she made me into a spectacle, when she fed me to the crowd like a party favor. That was the point of no return. You see, I've learned something over the years. Men like me, quiet, observant, controlled, we don't explode. We orchestrate. I glanced in the mirror, smoothed my tie, and drove 10 minutes away to a smaller gathering at a private estate where 2 men were waiting for me. One of them had a government badge, the other was the firm's largest silent investor. In 15 minutes, the man my wife was clinging to would receive a document that would suck the blood from his face and the air from the room. And my wife, she would learn for the first time in our marriage exactly who she was married to and what it costs to humiliate a man who spent years hiding his full name. The air outside was thick with humidity, and just enough laughter from the ballroom leaked through the double doors to remind me how thoroughly I'd been erased from that room. The kind of laugh that's not about joy, it's about hierarchy. She knew what she was doing. Stephanie didn't make mistakes. She made moves, and humiliating me in front of her new orbit of powerful men, that was her mating call. But if you listen closely, even the wolves go silent before a landslide. I walked to the car like I'd rehearsed it. I had. 3 times. Different galas, different bags. Same sick feeling in my stomach as I watched her treat me like an afterthought with a debit card. But tonight was the only night I walked away, not with shame, but with certainty. I reached the car, a matte black E-Class I kept garaged and off the books. She didn't even know I still had it. To her, I drove the SUV we shared, the one she could track on the phone app she didn't know I had dismantled 6 months ago. Funny thing about people who cheat, they obsessively monitor you, as if guilt needs company. I opened the trunk. The folder was where I left it, centered, untouched, sealed with a small red tab, unmarked except for a raised sigil in the corner. It wasn't for theatrics, it was for protocol. Inside was a 27-page escalation brief, 3 sealed copies of contractual amendments, and a digital token drive loaded with high-res internal emails. Emails the firm's owner sent from a supposedly personal device Stephanie once flaunted at our kitchen island like it was a trophy. She called it the one he uses for real business. I called it evidence. I opened my contacts, scrolled past all the names that no longer mattered, and landed on a number saved under a single emoji, a chess knight. Tapped it, no ring, no pleasantries. Activate the packet, I said, and schedule the reveal tonight, quietly. A pause, then a clipped confirmed. And that was it. No dramatic score, no fireworks, just a pulse steady enough to slice through glass. I slid behind the wheel, folder resting on the passenger seat, and drove, not fast, not slow, just deliberately, 10 minutes down a road, barely visible at night, canopied with trees, asphalt whispering under the tires, the kind of road meant for people who don't need to be seen arriving. The estate was modest, by certain standards, gated, silent, ivy wrapped around the columns like an old secret. 2 men waited on the veranda, one in a dark gray jacket with no lapel pins, no wristwatch, nothing reflective. The other I knew too well, Leonard K., the firm's ghost shareholder. The man, the owner of Stephanie's firm, believed was just legacy capital, not someone who attended quarterly briefings with the Treasury Department's internal fraud task force. We didn't shake hands. We nodded. Leonard glanced at the folder. So it's her. I didn't respond. He already knew. The man in the gray jacket opened a small case on the table. Timeline. Immediate, I said. He's on the floor with her now. Likely thinks he's celebrating. Then he'll remember tonight for different reasons, the agent said, handing me a clean USB for redundancy. I placed it in my inside pocket, next to the pen Stephanie gave me last Christmas, the one engraved with, "For my rock." I'd never used it, not once. Leonard leaned on the railing, watching the moonlight slice through the yard. You waited longer than I would have. I had to be sure, I said. Of what? That I didn't care anymore. And that was true. That was the freedom. I wasn't hurt, not anymore. What I felt was a cold precision, the kind that comes after years of small humiliations, layered like sediment. Her first flirtation with her old boss, the way she told the hairdresser I was semi-retired, the time she accidentally left her texts open on the iPad and then told me I was invading her privacy when I saw one too many winking emojis from a contact named TGF. She didn't cheat because she lacked love. She cheated because she thought I lacked consequence. The man in the gray jacket checked his phone. He's reading it now. Let him, I said. It'll be the first time he's had to read the fine print. Stephanie never understood my job. That was the point. She thought I was just another guy who cashed out in the early 2000s and spent the rest of his life coasting. She never asked why I still kept 2 licenses active in jurisdictions that hadn't touched a pension file in years. She never asked why my laptop had a triple authentication protocol, or why I never let her throw out the fireproof safe in the basement. Now all of it was active. All of it had been waiting. You want us to initiate the cascade? Leonard asked. His voice wasn't curious. It was cautious. No, I said. Let him sweat. 10 minutes. Then let the board call him. And your wife? I looked out into the dark. Somewhere she was still dancing. She wanted business, I said. She's about to get it. The owner was mid-spin when his phone buzzed. He didn't miss a beat, kept his arm low around Stephanie's back, fingers grazing fabric that cost more than most monthly mortgages. He smiled as the flashbulbs popped. Local press, regional execs, one or two influencers tagging the night like it mattered. For a moment, it looked like a stock photo of corporate seduction. Sharp suit, sharper woman, champagne sparkle, and synthetic charisma. But then the phone buzzed again. Then again, his smile didn't falter, not at first. He glanced down discreetly, saw the contact name, and just like that, the moment snapped. He stopped mid-step, no flourish, no bow, just a sudden stillness, like a man realizing he stepped off a curb into traffic. His eyes flicked toward the mezzanine balcony, then back at Stephanie. Her brows knit for a half second, genuine confusion for the first time that night. "Be right back," he muttered. No wink, no smile, just a retreat. He didn't offer her his hand, didn't say hold my drink, just turned and headed up the spiral staircase to the administrative level of the hotel ballroom, where doors are locked, not because of valuables, but because of damage control. Stephanie watched him go, arms still poised as if waiting for the music to resume. Around her, the crowd didn't notice. The dance continued, but her eyes tracked his every step. Upstairs, his assistant was already waiting. Blonde, no-nonsense blue folder in hand. "They sent it direct," she said, voice tight. "Encrypted, but it cracked under your board key. I didn't touch the contents. Just scanned for malware, clean." But what?" he asked, breath short. She handed him the folder. No label, no logo, just a thin, perfectly square red sticker on the corner. Raised seal, trust documentation. Private trust, not corporate. The kind used by people who don't want attention, but who have enough of it that they can afford to erase paper trails. Inside a single sheet, one paragraph, 6 lines, all substance, no fluff. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't even a notice, it was a trigger. Subject: Emergency Seek Review Initiation Sender. Charon Fiduciary Trust. Entity 7194. Date: effective immediately. The merger facilitation clause activated under Section 3.2a by discretionary stakeholder vote. All forward-facing equity bonuses suspended pending outcome of forensic audit. SEC notified. Internal compliance alerted. Recipient has 7 calendar days to provide undisclosed partnership agreements. Failure to comply will result in asset freeze per silent investor agreement filed Q4 FY19. At the bottom, a stamp. Raised, black wax. Authorizing party, redacted. He read it 3 times. The first read turned his stomach. The second stopped his breath. By the third, his hands were trembling so hard the page shook. He looked at his assistant. "Did you trace the trust?" "Offshore originally, but the current filing's domestic. Delaware registration, hidden behind a proxy series. Took me a second, but there's one name I found linked to the original acquisition firm that funded the pre-merger collateral pool. Whose?" And she hesitated. "Stephanie's husband." The words didn't register. They couldn't. That man, the one with the muted tie, the dull eyes, the posture of a man used to being ignored. That man was the ghost investor, the one he joked about in quarterly calls. "Whoever they are, I hope they die rich and silent," he'd once laughed. To the board, on record. He reached for his phone. No signal. Blocked up here. Standard protocol. He stormed toward the stairs. Stephanie was still standing near the bar, now flanked by a few women in floor-length gowns, sipping and whispering. She saw his face and straightened. Tried to smile. He didn't smile back. He reached her in 3 strides, grabbed her wrist, not hard, not enough to make a scene, just enough to make her blink. "Why didn't you tell me who your husband is?" he hissed. She blinked, startled. "What are you talking about?" "Don't play dumb with me," he spat. "That man is on the controlling board of the holding trust that backed the merger, my merger, the one I signed off on while he sat in the audience smiling like a Stepford corpse." She opened her mouth, closed it. "Do you have any idea what I just read upstairs?" he snapped. "What do you mean he's on the board?" she asked, voice cracking now. "He told me he was retired. He barely touches a spreadsheet." He laughed. Ugly, bitter. "Then why is his name tied to the trust account that triggered an SEC review? Why is your name on a side letter agreement I've never seen?" She faltered. He He couldn't. Oh, he did, the owner said, stepping back like she burned. And now I'm screwed. We're screwed. Stephanie's hands shook now, but not out of guilt, out of dawning, furious realization. Her husband hadn't left in shame. He'd left to pull a string. And now, somewhere in the dark, everything was beginning to unravel. He nearly fell down the stairs. The owner's shoes weren't made for urgency. Italian leather, polished within an inch of their life. Great for stage presence, terrible for fleeing a fire you started with a match you didn't realize was a grenade pin. As he hit the marble floor of the ballroom, the music swelled again. Saxophones and string overlays, all that curated ambiance meant to scream elegance and suppress accountability. None of it mattered. His eyes cut through the crowd like a hound mid-chase. He wasn't smiling anymore. No more tailored grins or brand-coached posture. He was looking for one man, but the man wasn't there. Instead, he found Stephanie right where he left her, by the bar, posture perfect, glass of wine in hand like nothing had changed. She was mid-laugh, mid-story, basking in the radiant ego burn that comes from public attention. He stormed through the crowd without apology, nearly knocking over a waiter with a tray of profiteroles. "Where's your husband?" he demanded, low and sharp. Stephanie's smile froze. "What?" She blinked, annoyed. "Where is your husband?" he said again, this time quieter but angrier. Her brows lifted. "Why do you care? He left. You saw that. He's probably sulking in the parking lot." She sipped her wine. "Honestly, he does this thing where—" He grabbed her arm, not roughly, but firm enough that the pulse under her skin picked up. "Why didn't you tell me who he was?" Her face twitched. "Who he is? I just danced with his wife," the owner hissed, "and called him your assistant. In front of board members, in front of regional stakeholders. I practically dry humped the woman who controls his equity share." She blinked like a soap actress. "He doesn't have equity. He hasn't worked since—" "Wrong," he spat. "He's on the controlling board of the parent company that owns the holding trust backing our firm." She stared at him like he'd grown antlers. "You're confused." "No, I'm screwed," he snapped, "because now I'm about to be reviewed, frozen out, and possibly dragged into a compliance black hole because I treated your husband like a goddamn bellboy." She yanked her arm back. "That's not possible. I would have known." "Oh, really?" He laughed bitterly. "You didn't even know which name was on the collateral guarantee. You thought your husband was playing Sudoku all day while you built a power couple narrative with me." He took out his phone. Still no service. "You just publicly made a man with fiduciary authority over our stock structure look like your chauffeur, and you did it while wearing a dress he probably paid for." Stephanie didn't speak, couldn't. Her cheeks were draining of color faster than her glass of Pinot. "Check your texts," he snapped. "Your phone should have service. You're probably already getting the fallout. Or maybe just a helpful reminder from your boring husband that the prenup clause he slid into your wedding vows wasn't just decorative." She fumbled for her purse, hands shaking. He scanned the room again, like the man himself might materialize out of the fog machine. Nothing. "He left on purpose," the owner muttered to no one. "He wanted me to dance with you, wanted me to make a fool of myself. He baited this entire thing." Stephanie's voice came out in a whisper. "He doesn't do that. He's not like that. He's quiet, predictable. He folds laundry." "And I file performance bonuses with confidence," the owner growled, "until someone like him shows up and reminds you how many floors you never looked under." Her phone buzzed. Once. Twice. She looked down. No name. Just a text bubble. "Storage Unit 14B, box labeled 7C. Read it carefully." Below that, a second message. "You're not going to enjoy this part." She read it twice. Her mouth moved, but nothing came out. And that's when it clicked. Not for him. For her. The illusion broke. All the years she thought she had power, all the times she led him around by the collar, fed him silence like medicine, handed him apologies with lipstick still fresh from someone else's mouth, all the moments she smirked while he held her coat, or carried her bags, or waited outside dinner parties where she introduced herself as relaunching after carrying a man for a decade. He wasn't being passive, he was positioning. And tonight, she wasn't the one in control. She was the lever being pulled. The owner backed away, slowly, like the air around her had become flammable. "Find him," he muttered, "before the board does." Or before your friends start asking why your husband just triggered a real-time audit that might vaporize half my worth. Stephanie just stood there, alone now. Not laughed at, not mocked, just irrelevant. And for the first time in her adult life, she looked exactly how she made him feel. The hotel's director of security didn't knock, he just appeared. Those quietly competent men with a clean suit and the kind of mustache that suggested a military past and zero tolerance for drama. He approached the owner just as the orchestra began their second rendition of some jazzy Sinatra cover, cutting through the ambient noise with a calm that made the panic worse. "Sir," he said, you asked for footage?" The owner turned, already sweating. "Yes, did he leave?" "We traced him entering at 7:46 p.m. alone. No staff contact, no valet use, entered through the South Service Wing using the guest keycard. But we have no footage of him exiting." The words landed like a slap. Not a violent one. Worse. A humiliating one. The kind that makes you realize you've lost control not just of the room, but of the script. No footage? He ghosted out of a hotel? He's not Houdini. The security man remained stone-faced. "We reviewed all main exits, fire stairs, freight lifts. No exit recorded." "So where the hell is he?" "He's likely still here, sir." Stephanie stood a few feet away, pale and stiff, holding her phone like a detonator she couldn't understand. Her eyes flicked to the mezzanine, then to the exits, then back to her wine. She hadn't taken a sip in 5 minutes. Her hands were trembling too much. The owner's assistant appeared beside them, breathless. She wasn't running, but close. She handed over a cream-colored envelope, unmarked, except for one line written in perfect black fountain pen script. "From your board representative." The owner hesitated, then tore it open. Inside, one page, printed, thick cotton stock. The kind of paper that's not just expensive, it's used to bind things. He scanned the contents. Once. His hand began to shake. He read it again, slower. Addendum to Executive Contract, Section 8.1, Reversal Trigger. Subject: Improper fraternization under executive power. Imbalance effective immediately. All performance bonuses and deferred compensation packages linked to the 2Q-4Q merger will be suspended pending compliance investigation. Trigger clause enacted due to observed conduct in conflict with fiduciary obligations to subordinate personnel and related partner affiliates. Filed under compliance board approval, unanimously signed. At the bottom, 3 initials. The first matched his silent shareholder's ID tag. The second, the firm's chief legal officer. The third, the husband's. The man who wasn't supposed to be in the building. The man who never left. The man who just reached into the financial bloodstream and pinched the artery closed. The owner's knees nearly gave. "This is a mistake," he muttered. "They can't. This clause was buried. We only activated it in the rarest." His assistant cut in, voice shaking now. They cited Section 12B, precedent from the Lancaster case. "It counts if it happens during a public event, in front of board observers, the dance, the introductions. It's on tape." Stephanie stepped closer. "What does that mean?" He turned, eyes wild. "It means he didn't come here to be embarrassed. He came here to witness me do something disqualifying. And I did." She didn't speak, just stared at the letter as if it might burst into flames. "This isn't just about bonuses," the assistant whispered, her voice cracking. "It's a conduct breach. It opens the door for board reallocation. They can review ownership splits, even vote to replace you as managing executive." A murmur rippled through the ballroom as a second assistant walked in, holding a tablet. Livestock tickers. The firm's parent entity, already taking a hit. Nothing catastrophic yet, but enough. "People are talking," the assistant said. "Somebody leaked the preliminary audit filing to a blog. It's spreading." The owner ran a hand through his perfectly sculpted hair. It fell out of place. He looked around the room and suddenly saw it through new eyes. Every handshake tonight, every toast, every camera angle. He'd played the king, made the crowd laugh, danced with a woman he thought was just another ambitious wife looking for clout. He had no idea she was the fuse and her husband was the match. A man from the board's legal advisory team walked in just then, face tight, holding a matching envelope. "Sir," he said, "the board would like you to review this version in private. They've officially suspended your comp package pending review." The owner didn't reach for it. He just looked at the letter in his hand, the signature at the bottom, and realized paper weighs nothing, but it can crush everything. Stephanie finally found her voice. Why didn't he just say something? Because men like him, the owner said, almost whispering now, don't raise their voice. They raise their value and let the paper speak. Stephanie stood near the marble column, her phone clutched like a lifeline, the screen glowing with calling mark, home cell, for the 4th time in 10 minutes. Still nothing. She tried again, straight to voicemail, but not even a message. Just blank silence in a digital tone. No cheery, "Hi, this is Mark," with that stupid, polite chuckle he always added. Gone, like the man had been erased mid-sentence. She flipped to his contact info, clicked on the email. It bounced. Then, on reflex, she opened LinkedIn. Page not found. She refreshed. Nothing. She blinked. Checked again. Same result. He didn't block her. His entire profile was gone. Deactivated. Wiped. The man who had once updated his job title to consulting retiree with a dorky palm tree emoji was missing. Her heart hiccuped. She was used to him being quiet, but this silence had weight. A deliberate silence. The kind that comes after someone flips a switch you didn't know existed. Everything okay? It was Lindsay, one of her party circuit friends. Designer gown, too much lip filler, the type who thought non-profit consulting meant drinking wine in large sunglasses for Instagram. Stephanie tried to smile. It didn't stick. I can't reach him, she muttered, more to herself than to Lindsay. Oh, that's just men, Lindsay shrugged. They sulk and disappear. But I gotta ask. She leaned in, voice dropping. Why does the owner look like he saw a ghost? Stephanie followed her gaze. And there he was. The owner, standing by the mezzanine stairwell, pale, suit jacket wrinkled, tie loosened, sweat shining at his temples, his jaw clenched in a way that screamed fight or flight. 2 attorneys flanked him, one flipping through a binder, the other whispering into his ear with the urgency of a man holding back a tsunami. The crowd didn't know yet. The jazz band was still playing, the waiters still pouring champagne. But in that corner, where the actual power lived, chaos was whispering. Stephanie moved toward them. She had to understand. The words reached her before she arrived. Merger financing was red flagged, the junior lawyer asked. The owner snapped. Of course it wasn't. That part was cleaned. No, sir, the older attorney said, tapping the folder. The collateral wasn't flagged because it was deliberately silent, but I just ran a backtrace on the origin of the fiduciary trust, and it loops through 2 blind LLCs, both tied to an original Delaware holding. So, the owner barked. So, the attorney said carefully, the man you danced with's husband signed the original incorporation paperwork 5 years ago, under a pseudonym that only shows up in elite-level private equity filings. The room swayed around Stephanie. What name? The owner asked. The lawyer showed him. A name. Short, unremarkable, but one that matched the signature on the emergency clause document. The same one that triggered the performance freeze. The same one with enough financial teeth to spook federal auditors. The owner staggered back a step. I joked about him once, he said. In a meeting, called him the invisible shareholder, said I hoped he stayed dead and quiet forever. Looks like he listened, the attorney said dryly. Until now. Stephanie's mouth went dry. She remembered her own words, tossed off like poisoned darts. Don't be jealous, puppy. Grab my bag. Mommy's doing business. The smug grin, the laugh from the table, the look on his face, not wounded, not angry, just ready. How many times had she dismissed him, made him the butt of a story to her friends, the background man, the accessory, the one who didn't get it, who needed her guidance just to survive a room full of ambition. She thought she had him figured out. He folds laundry, watches old westerns, always brings reusable bags to the grocery store, drives with both hands on the wheel. How many years had she mistaken silence for irrelevance? And now? He wasn't answering. He wasn't online. He wasn't anywhere. But his presence was everywhere, in the legal freeze, in the collapsing bonus structure, in the white faces of the executives who'd spent the evening laughing at his expense. One of the lawyers leaned into the owner's ear. Sir, with your authorization, we could open a line of communication with him. The owner shook his head. You don't negotiate with someone who already burned the map. Stephanie backed away slowly. She needed air, clarity, a moment. She found none, because at that exact second her phone buzzed. A single new message. You look so sure of yourself in that dress. No name, no number, just that. She stared at it, and for the first time in her adult life, she wasn't sure if she should be afraid of the man she mocked or mourn the version of him that let her. The door didn't slam open. There was no announcement, no music drop, no spotlight. It was quieter than that, more surgical. Just a click, a creak of the hinge, and then he walked in, through the same south side corridor he entered from earlier. Calm, hands relaxed at his sides. No tie, no coat. Just the same black suit, slightly looser now, like it had shed a skin with him. No apology in his posture, no need for one. But this time, he wasn't alone. Beside him walked a woman with a folder tucked under her arm and a look that could file taxes with her eyes alone. Short bob haircut, pinched expression, sharp black pantsuit, no heels. Flats, functional, fast, ruthless. She didn't look around. She moved like someone on assignment, like she'd walked into courtrooms, boardrooms, and blood-slicked compliance meetings and treated them all the same. People noticed. The first few heads turned from the buffet, then a couple near the bar stopped mid-toast. Then it was like a slow virus of realization infecting the entire ballroom. Conversations dropped off mid-sentence, forks paused halfway to mouths. The musicians kept playing until the pianist glanced up, saw the pair, and missed a key. The melody crumpled. Silence followed. The owner froze. He'd been by the staircase, gripping the banister with one hand and a sweating tumbler in the other, jaw locked, suit now half wrinkled from stress. When he saw the husband walk in, he took a single step forward, not to attack, not to fight, to beg. But the man didn't look at him. Not even once. He walked straight into the middle of the room. The woman beside him split off, wordless, handing documents in manila envelopes to each of the seated board members. No fanfare, just a nod, a glance, and a folder. A buzz started. Quiet, dangerous. One of the board members, a senior partner from the New York office, opened his envelope and read. His lips parted, but no sound came out. His eyes darted across the page, then shot up to meet the husband's face. That's when the collapse began. The owner took another step, this one clumsy. Wait, he started, voice high and unfamiliar. We can discuss this. I didn't know who you were. Still, the man said nothing to him. Not even a glance. Not to the man who flirted with his wife. Not to the man who cut him down to get a cheap laugh. Not to the man who danced on his grave before checking if it was actually empty. And not to her. Stephanie stood in the far corner halfway behind a potted plant, her mouth slightly open. She looked like someone watching a car crash, but realizing she was in the passenger seat. The husband took one step forward and then another, until he reached the small presentation dais set up for the firm's announcement speeches. He didn't climb it. He didn't need height. He had gravity. He looked out over the crowd. Some of you know who I am, he said, voice quiet even. Some don't. After tonight, it won't matter. No microphone. He didn't need one. The room had gone still, the kind of silence you only hear before an execution. I've been a silent board partner of our parent entity for 8 fiscal years. I preferred it that way. I believed in this company. I still do. But after the internal breaches I witnessed tonight, here his eyes scanned the room but never stopped on anyone. I'm dissolving the shell corporation that buffered the merger. Effective immediately, the firm is under full compliance review. Gasps. Real ones. He continued, the fiduciary protections that allowed executive discretion over post-merger allocation are revoked. Every bonus, severance clause, and fast-track promotion from this year will be reviewed, line by line. This is not punitive, this is structural. The owner's voice cracked behind him. We didn't know. I didn't. The husband finally turned, but not to him, not to the man's eyes, to the folder in his hand. If you had read the charter instead of rehearsing speeches, he said, you would have seen my name 6 times. The board member from New York stood up. Mr. Hale, he said. The husband turned slightly, acknowledging. You're triggering Clause 9? Yes, he said simply. And the oversight team is ready? They've been on standby since I entered the building. The board member nodded once, then to the room. This event is now closed. Effective immediately. No socializing, no statements, no press. Leave your devices on the table. This is not a drill. Someone in the crowd whimpered. Not cried, whimpered, like a mouse watching the trap come down. The husband looked down once, checking the time. Then, finally, his eyes swept across the room, and for one breath, just one, he looked at Stephanie, not with rage, not with sadness, with nothing. The kind of nothing that comes after a decision, the kind of nothing you give to a stranger who once had a name, but lost it when they laughed at your silence. She took a half step forward, lips parting, hand raising. He turned away and walked out. She found him alone, not in the ballroom, not with the board, not surrounded by lawyers or staffers scrambling to save their reputations. Just him, standing at the edge of the hotel's valet roundabout, hands in his pockets, looking out at the rain starting to mist the pavement under the golden canopy lights. He looked like a man waiting for a car, or maybe a different life. Stephanie's heels clicked across the stone, echoing like gunshots in her skull. Her dress felt tighter now, like it was choking her. She hadn't cried in years, at least not genuinely, not the kind that comes from the throat, not the kind that surprises you with how unpretty it feels. But now, her cheeks were damp and hot, and her voice cracked before she even reached him. "Mark?" He didn't turn. "I didn't know. I swear to God, I didn't know. I was just trying to—" He turned then. Not fast, just enough to freeze her mid-sentence. His expression wasn't cold. It was vacant. Not apathy, not anger, just done. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small brass key. It was old, scratched, attached to a plain white tag with one number written in thick black marker. 14B. He held it out to her between two fingers. She didn't take it. "What is this?" she asked, her voice already trembling. He didn't answer, just placed it in her palm and closed her fingers around it. His words were calm, too calm. "Storage unit, box labeled Prenup Clause 7C. You'll want to read it before you call a lawyer." Her breath caught. "Mark, come on. Please, that night we were drunk. I was just playing up the crowd. It wasn't real." He didn't flinch. "Everything was real, Stephanie. You just assumed none of it had weight." She blinked. "Is this about the bag, the dance? I was being playful. I didn't know it would humiliate you. You never said—" "I never had to," he said. "You stopped listening long before I stopped talking." And with that, he turned and walked toward the car that had just pulled up. Sleek, black, untagged. The driver got out, nodded, held the door open. Stephanie stood frozen in the driveway, her hand shaking around the key. She didn't follow. Not right away. But an hour later, after the party had collapsed, after the lights dimmed, after her phone stopped vibrating with missed calls and texts, and the board's PR team stopped trying to locate her for a formal apology statement, she went. The storage unit was in an industrial park across town. Concrete walls, blue doors, chain-link gates, and the coldest kind of lighting. The kind that buzzes faintly, like it's trying to whisper secrets it shouldn't know. 14B was near the back. The key clicked like a gun cocking. The door groaned upward with the metallic reluctance of something untouched for years. Inside was one box, just one. Black plastic, sealed. On the top, a laminated envelope with her name on it in his handwriting. Beneath it, a stack of documents and protective sleeves. She opened them with trembling fingers. The first page was familiar, too familiar. Prenuptial agreement between Mark Hale and Stephanie Jennings. Dated, notarized, signed in blue ink. She remembered the day. They were at a notary's office downtown. She'd laughed, even joked about it. "You're so formal," she had teased. "What are you hiding, a Swiss account?" He'd smiled, said nothing. Now she read the highlighted section, Clause 7C, Spousal Asset Nullification. In the event of proven recorded public defamation or intentional humiliation by one party toward the other, said clause nullifies all spousal claims to shared marital assets, savings, retirement accounts, and properties acquired post-marriage. Exceptions? None. Beneath it, an addendum, handwritten, dated 3 years after their wedding. Per mutual agreement, the clause remains enforceable regardless of verbal provocation, intoxication, or third-party influence. Witnessed and resigned by both parties. There was her signature. Again, fresh, clear, she stared at it until the words blurred. Then she looked around the unit. There were no photos, no clothes, no memories. Just that box. because he'd already moved on emotionally, financially, spiritually. He hadn't lost control tonight. He hadn't lashed out. He had let go a long time ago. She thought tonight was the rupture. It wasn't. Tonight was just the paperwork. The real end had come years before, in 100 moments she never noticed. When he stopped arguing, stopped asking where she was going, stopped trying to be seen. She hadn't lost him at the gala. She lost him the first time she mocked his silence and didn't care if it hurt. Now, the silence was permanent, and it was hers. Stephanie woke up to silence, not the good kind, the cozy early morning peace with birdsong and coffee brewing in the background. No, this was the kind of silence that screamed, the kind that wraps around your throat while the rest of the world screams about you just loud enough that you can't pretend it's not happening. Her phone was already glowing when she cracked her eyes open. Notifications stacked like bricks in a prison wall. Emails, texts, missed calls, and a few things that made her stomach churn in ways no wine hangover ever had. She sat up slowly, like movement itself might shatter the illusion that maybe, just maybe, it had all been a bad dream. But it hadn't. The first text was from her hairstylist. "Sorry, Steph. Need to cancel Thursday. Maybe reschedule in a few weeks." Then her Pilates instructor. "Studio's going through some stuff, cutting clients temporarily. Thanks for understanding." Lies, every one of them. No one cuts Stephanie Jennings unless someone told them to, or unless she had become a liability. She opened Instagram next. The tag alerts were endless. Photos from the gala, her in that red dress, mid-laugh. Him, Mark, blurred in the background of one shot, eyes cool, hands folded. The caption from a now-deleted post, you can almost see the moment the empire started crumbling. Next post, a screenshot of a leaked memo. Emergency compliance notice. Internal review of merger conduct, board authorized. Then came the quotes. From guests, from employees, from anonymous execs trying to crawl away from the wreckage like rats from a flooding basement. It was like watching a ghost dismantle a kingdom. He didn't even raise his voice, just walked in and ended it. Nobody knew who he was. We thought he was her ride home. Stephanie covered her mouth, not to keep from sobbing, to keep from screaming. She opened her email, CNN Money, Bloomberg, even a tech newsletter she once joked was for the nerds. They were all running variations of the same story. Silent stakeholder triggers, collapse of merger deal over gala incident. Power couple no more. How one man's quiet revenge set off a corporate implosion. From accessory to assassin, the mysterious husband who shook an empire. The firm's stock had dropped 17% before the market even fully opened. By lunch, the owner had been suspended, pending a comprehensive investigation into financial ethics violations, conflict of interest concerns, and bonus manipulation following new documentation. One anchor on a finance channel actually laughed during the segment. And apparently the guy, Mark Hale, has zero online presence now. Gone. Scrubbed. No trace. We don't even know if that's his real name. The co-anchor added, "Makes you wonder how many other guys out there are hiding that kind of power behind khakis and a wedding ring." The camera cut to both of them smirking. The joke was on her. Her phone rang. "Mom." She hesitated, picked up. Silence for a beat. Then, "What did you do to that man?" "Mom, I didn't." "No, Stephanie. This isn't about a little cheating. This is biblical. He made the market move. Do you understand how rare that is? You married a man with power, and you mocked him in public like he was your caddy." Stephanie closed her eyes, breathing shallow. Her mother wasn't done. "You humiliated him in front of executives, powerful ones. And now, none of your friends will take your calls. I already got dropped from the garden club this morning, and I don't even live in your state." Click. Stephanie stared at the screen. More emails, 2 endorsement deals canceled, an invitation to speak at a women's leadership brunch withdrawn, her alma mater's alumni committee. "We've decided to go in another direction." In 24 hours, she went from being the woman who redefined corporate femininity to a cautionary tale wrapped in a scandal. And still, no word from Mark, nothing. Not a text, not a call, not even a voicemail to scream into. He hadn't disappeared. He had retreated into a place she couldn't touch. A silence she couldn't decode. She wasn't embarrassed. She was radioactive. And every single person she once controlled with charm, favors, or strategic wine nights, they were now watching her from a distance, calculating how quickly they could pretend they never knew her name. The office was quiet. save for the ticking of a brass wall clock and the distant hush of ocean waves folding over each other just beyond the glass. Floor-to-ceiling windows looked out over gray, endless horizon, the kind of view people pay for just to feel like they're in control of something. Stephanie stood in the doorway, smaller than she'd ever felt, even in heels. Her coat hung awkwardly over her arm, forgotten halfway on, hair pulled back, no makeup, no entourage, no smile. He was seated across the room. Mark. A navy sweater, dark slacks, reading glasses perched low on his nose, reviewing a file, one hand idly flipping a page. He hadn't changed much, except for the way he didn't look at her, not as surprise, not as disdain, as nothing. She cleared her throat, the sound barely carried. Mark. He didn't look up, turned a page. I just wanted to talk. One last time. Please. He held up one finger. Not rudely, just, a pause. Then he closed the file, placed the pen down beside it, and stood. He didn't walk to her. He walked to the window, hands in his pockets. His voice barely rose above the wind outside. You told me to grab your bag. She blinked. What? That night, he said, still facing the ocean, you said, grab my bag. Mommy's doing business. Silence. He turned slightly, just enough for her to see his profile. So I did. I grabbed every clause, every asset, every ounce of silence I had left, and I carried it out the door. She took a step forward. The floor beneath her felt like eggshells. I didn't know it would go like this, she whispered. I didn't know you'd... She stopped. He waited. Can we fix it? She asked, voice breaking like a piano string. He turned, finally, met her eyes. The same ones that once watched her laugh at his expense across dinner tables, across conference rooms, across years, but now they were different, not angry, not sad, just clear. You don't fix this, he said. A pause. You remember it. Then he picked up his folder, turned and walked past her. No drama, no last-minute cruelty, no vengeance in his step, just the weightless calm of a man who finally let go. And this time, she didn't follow. She just stood there, silent, small, watching the door click shut behind him. And for the first time, she realized silence wasn't his weakness. It was his weapon. And she handed it to him.